Hey, fellow traveler. Welcome to the Third Eye Awakening podcast, a show where we talk all about spiritual and psychic awakening, magic, the shift from 3D to 5D, star seeds, ascension, multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, the universe, the multiverse, the Akashic records, all the good things. I am your host, Amy Belair, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Okay, let's do this. My friends, hello. What a month it's been. I'm sorry for leaving you all hanging. I know you all have rich and beautiful lives, and it's really not the end of the world for you to, have gone several weeks without a new podcast episode coming out. But nevertheless, I am sorry. It was not my intention at all to have a huge, entire month off of releasing podcast episodes. Apparently, I just needed some integration time, and it just happened, whether my conscious mind chose it or not. So it is what it is. I also had, some turbulence in my personal life. We just unexpectedly lost my mother-in-law at the beginning of August. And as you can imagine, that has been, it has been what it has been, and it involves lots of feelings and lots of logistics and big changes, big adjustments. So that's part of the reason. But also, I really just think my brain is programmed to take summers off, even if I don't intend to. So here we are. I have a new episode for you today. I'm very excited. It's an interview episode with none other than the magical, super psychic, super amazing, total star of a coach, Viola Hug. So before I let you listen to this episode, this interview, I just want to say that Viola was my first coach, and she made all the difference in my life. Prior to that, I had really never thought about coaching. I had never invested in coaching. It was just not really a thing on my radar at all. But I took a program with Jessica Reed at the beginning of last year, at the beginning of 2019, called Gifted Experts, because I knew that I could read the Akashic Records. I knew I could do readings for people, but I didn't have the confidence. And I just needed to really take a step in that direction to build up my confidence around it. And that program was amazing. So if you want to develop intuitive gifts and you like a very girly vibe about it, then check out Jessica Reed, because she's so good at what she does. So I took that program, and through that program, I connected with Viola because she had taken the first round the previous year. And so I just sort of indirectly connected with her. I watched some of her videos from when she was participating, and I just fucking loved her vibe. She's just so enthusiastic and excited and high vibe, and man, she's a dreamer, but she's a dreamer who then takes that shit and turns it into reality. She just has a gift. She is pure magic. So when I finished the Gifted Experts program, I was like, I'm ready. I want to do readings. I want to leave midwifery, or at least take a break from it, a long break, years of a break. And I really want to connect with people through readings because I love doing it. But I kind of just knew that if I didn't, if I just waited until the end of December 2019 when my contract was over, I would end up making up reasons why I couldn't do that, and I would just end up staying in midwifery. I could feel the power of all of my stories and my limiting beliefs and my fears and all that, and I knew that I had to make a ballsy move in the direction that I wanted to go. And so I invested in coaching, and it was a big financial stretch for me, but it was worth every penny and more. It was interesting learning about the power of choosing yourself and placing all of your bets on yourself. It feels like I was in a poker game and I went all in, but I went all in on me, my hand was me and who I truly am and what I truly have to give to the world. And I was just this is a fucking good hand and I'm going all in. And if I lose, then so be it. But like, I'm just not playing it safe anymore. I'm doing this. And so paying the amount that I paid her, which her prices have gone up since, and again, she is worth every penny and more, but paying that amount last year was such a powerful act in my favor, because it was like, I had to show up to meet my own investment. Like, I couldn't like make excuses as to like why I was going to sabotage myself and whatever. And I'm sure Viola felt like she had to be super patient with me the whole time, because I was like at the baby beginnings of like so many excuses and such wobbly confidence and like so many fears. But she was so gentle and awesome with me, but also super intuitive, super magical, and like would call me on my shit in the nicest way, but just make sure that I wasn't, she just wouldn't indulge my crap, basically. She was like, what are you here for? Like, what is this for? Come on, get to it. So she was amazing that way. And I will always love her from the bottom of my heart. She held my vision. She saw and connected with the vision that I had for myself. And my confidence in my vision was so low. It was more of like I hope this can be true, but I'm afraid that it's not. And she was like, fuck that, it is true. And she just held that vision until I was strong enough to hold it for myself. And yeah, it was, she's just the best, y'all. And if you are wanting to start an intuitive business, or you have an intuitive business going, it doesn't have to be a readings-based business. It's just like anything. Like, I think one of the people she works with currently and has been working with for a long time is a hairstylist, but it's just like a hairstylist who, is like zhuzhy and vibey and like believes in the energetic work and the mindset work. And so it doesn't have to be like a readings-based business, but if you want a business that is an expression of your soul, or you have one and you want to bring your soul more to the forefront, you want to like sort of find a better balance between strategy and like energy and mindset and manifestation and magic and all that stuff, then I highly recommend Viola. She's just amazing. She did not ask me to plug her in this way, but like, I can't give this interview to you without giving you context for how fucking awesome she is. And so in this interview, she shares about her spiritual and psychic awakening and how she went, like how she thought that she didn't have any gifts when she was younger. And now she's like, no, man, I'm full on psychic. It's all good. No worries. And also just the things that she went through that kind of like, shook up her sense of how the world works and how the universe works and things like that. It's a really beautiful interview, as they always are. And if you want to stick around to the end, I'm going to tag on a little extra bit because I just feel called to riff on third eye activation. I mean, this is the Third Eye Awakening podcast after all. And like, what is this, the 28th episode? I can't believe it's like a shame. What's wrong with me? How dare I wait this long to riff about third eye activation? But I want to give you my take on it because I think my take is a little unique compared to what, I have come across anyways on YouTube and other sources. So if you want to stick it out to the very end of the episode, then I'm going to have a few extra minutes about that and a little surprise gift for all of you to announce at the end. Okay, without any further unnecessary rambling, here is the interview with the beautiful, amazing, magical psychic, Viola Hug. Hi, Viola. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to connect with you. How are you doing today?
I'm so happy. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm doing great.
Yay! So, I will already have included this in my intro, but for everybody, Viola was my very first one-on-one coach, and she's the greatest ever. So if you're looking for an amazing psychic business coach, then definitely connect with her. And I'm excited to have her here today to share with us her spiritual and psychic awakening journey as it has unfolded thus far. So Viola, will you please read to us or tell us your like basically, like I've read your bio. Will you tell us in your own kind of like non-curated words who you are and what you're about, what your vibe is, and like where you've come from, how you've
Hmm.
gotten here?
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, we can always dive into all the parts deeper, but keeping in mind this is the Third Eye Awakening podcast, which I so love. And I so love you, Amy. You are the greatest as well. Um, what I do now, like the work that I do is like deeply spiritual, but also like I have this kind of like obsession with humanness and spirituality. Like I really love both aspects. I love the fact that we're human. I love the fact that we get to experience the material world and we get to eat food and hug people and all of these really cool human things. And I also love the fact that we are like limitless beings. And it's just so fun to me to play with both those dynamics. And for me, that means for me living out my passion, my purpose in my business, and just seeing what's possible. Like the evolution of who we could be is so exciting for me. But it's so interesting because I feel like I learned or got to this point in like so many different layers and phases, like I went through even though I kind of always had this idea I was intuitive, I went through so much of my life believing that was just like a gift I was not born with, like psychicness or intuitive gifts, because I really thought that it was like specially for some people, and no one ever told me I was psychic. So how could I possibly be, you know? And so, I mean, very much in a nutshell, like I went through an experience that was a really like pivotal shift in my life when I was in my mid-teens, where I lost my father to cancer. And that kind of took me into this like really deep, dark emotional place. And for about 5 years, I went through this whole experience of experiencing, like, I guess, how my shadow came out while I was not really dealing with the grief, while I was not really dealing with how that had affected me very well. And then I had this like, then my next kind of shift moment was about 5 years after that. And I just suddenly had this like choice to make, it felt like, where it was either like, this is either the end because I can't live like this, or this is the start of a completely new version of me. And I mean, it sounds really easy saying it like that. It was a very hard and emotional thing at the time, but then I felt like I was ready to start changing things, and I started working on my mindset. And as synchronicity has it, I came across things like the law of attraction and things that really interested me and intrigued me. And then I started really working on my mental health and my emotional health, and then I entered entrepreneurship. And then those next 5 years where it was kind of like the biggest mirror in my life to really taking a look at what was truly going on inside of me versus just what I could create in the external world. Because I'd grown up being a pretty good student, like if I studied, I could get good grades. I would clean the house to make my mom happy. Like I would do things in my life that kind of like got some sort of external result. And so when I entered into entrepreneurship for the first time, I was like, I'm gonna like follow all the rules. I'm gonna be so like specific, and mind you, this was all old paradigm business stuff, like work really hard, stay up really late, hustle, 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 never give up, work harder than anyone else. And I did. I worked harder than anyone that I knew. And for the first little while it worked, I started seeing external results. I started making a little bit of money. I started having people recognize me. All of these things I thought would bring me this deep sense of joy. Wow, And then also it started to elude me. Suddenly I was not making money. Suddenly I was finding myself in deeper and deeper and deeper depths of debt. And I was, really faced with the opportunity to look at myself. And in that time, like my relationship with abundance really shifted, and my relationship with my intuition really shifted. And it was around that time that I started having, I guess you could call it my spiritual awakening, when I started not randomly, but randomly like running into old friends who suddenly are now psychic mediums. And, like just these super awkward, weird experiences that I'm like, this is really weird. And then they told me about spirit guides, and they told me about archangels, and my mind was like so blown that I became obsessive. But still for a long part of that, it was like, this is just a cool thing that other people can tap into for me, and I can ask, and my angels are there, but I don't have any say in, my own intuition or anything. And then yeah, I mean, it's a long story, but then through that process, I really started to play with my intuition and practice my intuition. And I realized how highly intuitive I was is when I hired a coach. It was actually, I thought she was going to help me with business, which she did, but she really kind of like made me realize how powerful and tapped in I already was in my intuition. And from that point, I started my coaching business at the start of 2018 with 3 commitments: to follow my intuition, no matter how scary, to work on being like balanced in my masculine and feminine energies and like just energetic alignment in general. Like I use human design with that as well. And thirdly, just to build my business in a way that was like so super fun to me and was like aligned in an integrity with who I am and what I like doing. And then I built a multiple 6-figure coaching business.
Woot woot.
Pretty much.
The nutshell summary of like the very, detailed and I'm sure tumultuous feeling at times journey from the beginning to now. I love that story. And I'm really interested. I'm curious, was there a point, like, did you always sort of believe in like souls or, like, did you always kind of have a sense that there was like more than just exactly what meets the senses in this life? Or did that really sort of like open up at any point in your life?
I feel like I've always had a belief in that. Like I grew up in a like non-religious conforming household, I suppose, but my parents were Catholic. They kind of had the belief though that they would just like let me choose my spiritual beliefs when I was older, which
bless them.
Yeah, which I mean, I think is really nice in theory as well, but then it's so interesting, like, especially understanding now how much of just the way that we communicate and say things are just actually still very in like religious settings, so it's like although it was very like there was no sort of nothing was pushed on me, like I always still had this feeling that there was something, but I also had a really complicated relationship with it because I felt like I went through a phase when I was about 10 where I was like 100% convinced I was a witch, to the point where my friend and we like swore we could move objects with our mind, and we told our parents that we were witches and they didn't believe us. They just like laughed, and we were so pissed that we ran away. We had like a book of shadows and it had all our spells and our secret language in it, and so it was like I loved playing with that kind of stuff. And then I was like so obsessed with the world of Harry Potter when that came out. I think that was kind of like a little piece of my soul being like, magic exists.
Yes, totally.
And then it was where it was really challenged for me though is when my dad got sick when I was 14, right? Yeah. So that was a point when I was like, what exists? Like what even is life? And I remember questioning what God was. I remember questioning what all of this means. And at the time we were living in New Zealand. It was just like a 1-year New Zealand trip. Geographically doesn't really matter. We were living there and there was like a church, and I like asked my parents if I could go to church. And for the whole year that we were in New Zealand, I went to church, and I found so much like connection and meaning in that it was a Christian church. And I felt like, oh my God, I get it. And I could pray, and it was like this whole thing. But then when we moved away from New Zealand and I like kind of continued to like experience someone losing their life and then my dad losing his life, I felt like I didn't suddenly feel like everything that I'd been taught through the church resonated anymore with how I felt about the experience. Right. And then I was really kind of in question of it. I was in curiosity of it. And then, I remember when I went to university when I was like, so my dad passed away when I was 16. And then when I was about 18 or 19, I was at university, and there was like people recruiting for like a church in the public area, and they walked past and they're like, oh, do you believe in God? And I was like, yeah, I just don't know if it's like has the same definition as you. And then we got into a little bit of dialogue, and I mentioned about how my beliefs just felt different after I lost my dad. And then they straight up said to me, was your dad a Christian? And I said, no. And they said, well, then he's in hell. And I went, oh wow, cool, this is great. And wow. I was like, so So I had this, like, when I
Yeah.
say I had a complicated relationship, the thing is that I believed in a higher power, but I didn't know what that higher power was. And the only definition of God that I knew was a religious God, right? And so I had trouble because a lot of the things that I was learning didn't resonate with how I felt. And so even when I started having sort of more my spiritual reawakening, I guess, or awakening around like 2017, 2018 time, like I actually started going to church again for a little while because I was like, maybe this is what I'm meant to be doing. Maybe this is where I'm meant to be finding like that connection. And again, it didn't resonate, but it gave what that did for me, that in that experience, is it gave me permission to actually feel a connection to God without necessarily needing it to be anybody's definition of God. And so,
Right.
yeah, so that's kind of how that went.
Yeah, no, that's really cool to hear that, like, you kind of always had a sense that there was something more, but it was sort of like in childhood, it sounds like it was maybe kind of like undefined, and just like you just took it for what it was in a way. And then you like hit the illness and death of your father, and that caused you to question it really deeply.
And I think when you're like start getting into those like mid-teen years, you like your mind becomes so much more logical through the conditioning of the world. You know what I mean? When
for sure.
You're a kid, you're just like magic, and I'm like, I totally made that thing move over there.
I am a witch.
Yeah, 100%. And it's so funny as well because I had this like I always say, like one of the times in my life where a seed was really truly planted that bloomed into something beautiful was when I was 18, when we first moved back to New Zealand after my dad passed away. And my mom made me watch The Secret because she kind of came across it and she's like, oh my God, you're gonna love this. And I was like, Mom, what's this dumb thing? And then I watched it and I was like, every part of me was like, I fucking knew it. I knew it. But then I didn't do anything with that information for about 5 years. But, you know, it was like kind of like every part of me was like, I knew that we had more of an impact on what we could create in our life than what we are led to believe.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so funny that you were like, oh, Mom, what is this? Because now you just started running a live round of your program, Manifestation Magic, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so funny that
I know
that like initially there was an eye roll and then you were like, yes, this is real.
I know. I was such a little like nothing's cool at that age, you know, like
yeah, of course. Aren't we all? So something I really, really relate with, and I think a lot of people relate with, is what you said at the beginning about like not ever thinking that you had any intuitive gifts or any psychic gifts when you were younger, and like nobody told you that you did, and you kind of had this idea that it was for like it's for a select few, like really open people, and that it's like really obvious when you have them. And so what, like, how, looking back, do you feel like you were sort of activated on some level in your intuitive gifts, but it was just like so normal for you that you didn't even notice it? Yeah. And what did it, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, when I kind of had the realization, like, oh, this is what an intuitive message is. I was like, I've been getting these literally my entire life. Like, what the heck?
Like, what?
And but it is true because I really, really thought, like, because when people say to me, and I mean, you have to understand, like, the first time I heard of a clairvoyant, I was like in my teens, right? So it's kind of like that age where things are starting to be a little bit more logical and you're starting to try and be an adult and all the things, you know? And so I heard of a clairvoyant. I'm like, what's a clairvoyant? And they're like, well, it's somebody who can like connect. They see energy. They see past loved ones. And I'm like, oh my God. So I remember I would like sit there so dumbfounded. Like I would be like, can you imagine like looking around and just seeing people walking around and then not knowing which ones are dead and which ones are alive? Like that's literally what I thought it would mean to be clairvoyant.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And I thought it was always on. I thought there was always going to be 3D people walking around, and some of them are dead and some of them are alive. And I was like imagining, like, do they, like, if they died brutally, like, do they show themselves brutally? Do they look like how they looked when they died? Like, I had all these like thoughts and questions in my head of like what it would mean and what it would look like, and it must be scary, and is it weird? And I was terrified of it as well on some level, you know, like I didn't want to have a gift because I'm like, that sounds horrible. Like to have like voices in your head at night and like spirits sitting on your bed. And there was like a few encounters, you know, like we lived in what we referred to as a haunted house around that same age that I was convinced I was a witch, and my sister saw a ghost in her room, and a 3D ghost, right? So a mom and a small child, and that gave me the heebie-jeebies like nobody's business. And then also my friend would have like a really tall old man that she used to say would come and sit at the end of her bed, and I was like, that is the creepiest thing in the whole wide world.
That's not cool at all.
I do not want a gift. That's all I'm saying. Like, yeah, so that's what I assumed it was.
Yeah, me too. That's so interesting because I totally did too. And I've wondered about it a lot through the years. Like, why did I think that? And I don't know, it's maybe like just movies and like the way they try and depict it on those like, you know, psychic detective shows and stuff like that. Like trying to translate it so people can conceive of like WTF the whole thing is about. But I know that some people certainly see full-bodied apparitions or partial apparitions or shadow figures or see things in 3D, but I think a lot of the time it's just way more subtle, and it's way more like of a, like if in terms of clairvoyance, it's way more of a often like a mental image or like kind of a weird staticky hologrammy projection coming from somewhere in your mind that.
Yeah, like how I describe it now is it's literally what I used to think just was imagination. Like when I would be like imagining things, like it's the same type of image, right? And I say that like if you were to say like imagine the fridge in your kitchen and opening it, or imagine a tree, or imagine a monkey, the way that we see that is like, well, for me at least, how I see a clairvoyant message. It's like I see it, but I don't see it at all. It's like I see it and I know it's there, but I also don't see it, and it's not there. And so it is like the trust in that, I think, is what the hard thing is for a lot of people when they're in this awakening process, because if it's something that you probably have experienced before, then but you didn't perceive it as an intuitive message, then it's like, I don't know, it's just this whole thing of like, well, how do I know when to trust it? How do I know when it's just my mind versus an actual intuitive message, and all of these questions?
Totally. Exactly. And like, it's just a lot more subtle than for a lot of people than, I don't know, that I guess than you and I, and I'm sure other people have assumed through time.
And I did actually, like when I was going through in 2017, when I was going through like really, that's when I was really starting to trust my intuition. And actually what was so interesting for me at that time, and this is actually why I kind of went back to church, because I was so confused by what I was like experiencing, but Jesus came to me as a guide. And for all of 2017, I could feel Jesus in my energy. And I was actually seeing him through my clairvoyance. It's just, I wasn't clicking that that's what it was. But it was such a cool experience because I actually loved his energy, and I thought he was so fun and loving, and like it was just such a beautiful experience for me. But that year we were house sitting a house in New Zealand, and I remember I was like working on like, it's not scary to see ghosts, it's not scary to see spirits, it's not to, you know, like I was kind of like trying to convince myself, because I really, at that point I really wanted to open up, right? When I realized that we actually all do have access to this gift, I really wanted to, and I wanted to be able to see. And I literally walk out of the shower into the room, and I like look over, and there's just a man standing there, and I'm like, and then I went and I just like shut my eyes and got so freaked out, and I just like ran back to the bathroom, and then like it was like a double doored bathroom, and out the other door of the bathroom into the kitchen. I was like, Nick, I just saw a ghost. And because like when I blinked, it wasn't there anymore, but I remember like I can still see it now. It was like a full person, and it was just so, and like in super old clothes. And it was interesting because we Googled it after, and where the house is built was like on an old battle ground.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was just like so interesting because that's the kind of clothes he was wearing, and he had like a big old like gun, and it was just like really interesting. And I was like, oh. But anyway, that was like so my one cool experience like that. I think I would still be freaked out, to be honest, if I saw that.
Oh, I'm totally freaked out. Like, I know that I'm creating my own block from seeing, because I have this bizarre fear of seeing ghosts, even though like
Yeah.
I interact with them in other ways, and like I
Mhm.
understand like what ghosts are, and I don't know, like logically I'm not afraid of them, but to see one, I feel like I would just like scream and barf, and like I
I
don't
know.
know, I don't think I could handle it.
And it was so funny because at the time as well, I was just like, no. And I closed my eyes and then I was like, wait, yes. And then I was like, wait, no. Like, it was, oh my gosh. And
That's so
we
funny.
did stay at one Airbnb here in Canada where I live now. Like when we first got here, and I remember seeing a small girl as well, but it was like I could sense her before I like looked, and I like it freaked me out. So when I went to the bathroom, I'd always close my eyes and I'd turn on the light even though it was like 3 a.m. in the morning. It was like so bright, but I was like, I have to turn it on, I'm too freaked out.
And when you saw the man and that little girl, what's the best way you could describe the way that they appeared? Like, did they look totally solid?
So the man looked totally solid. Like that's what was so freaky about it.
Wow.
Is like it was literally like for a moment I thought it was Nick actually standing there, but then I could tell by his dress that it wasn't Nick. And then that's
Yeah.
what like I had that brief thing of like what just happened, and that's why it freaked me out so bad. But with the girl, it was like that was more like I more saw her with my mind's eye, but it was different because like sometimes when I'm connecting with like, if I'm like reading someone and there's like a past loved one, or even for myself, and there's like my guides come through, it's more like you would say like holographic, like it's in my mind, like the imagination, it's more that. But sometimes like with that particular little girl, it was almost like it was a holographic external feeling, like I could tell that it was in the room versus just like in my energy field.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very weird but cool. But weird.
That's so cool. And so now that you've like totally owned your intuitive gifts and your psychic gifts, and you're working with them like integrated into your business, how does the information come through to you now? Is it different?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still so subtle, and the most powerful messages that I get are through the most subtle intuitive hits, but like clairvoyance and claircognizance are the two that I mainly get communicated through. So claircognizant is definitely like the strongest one in terms of where I get like the most knowing. It's usually like sometimes I'll get like a flash of something through clairvoyance that kind of just like helps me start the thought process, or helps me like complete a picture, like sometimes I might see, I don't know, like I've seen like before a string, and I'm like, what is a string? And then as soon as I start like interacting with it and I'm like, oh, I see a string, then I'm like, oh, okay, it's representative of a rope, it's representative of this, and then I can like then suddenly through claircognizance I know the meaning and I know the story and I know how it fits in.
Yeah.
And so that's like the main way messages come through for me. Lately I've been feeling like clairsentient, like a little bit more feeling in the body. And I'm also clear empath, which is also like clairsentient. I guess some people separate them, some people don't. But like I do notice emotions a lot of the time. It's just for me, I have a harder time still picking up on those. You know what I mean? Like I'm used to my claircognizance and my clairvoyance versus emotion. Sometimes I can't tell if I'm feeling it, or, like I'm still in that bit where I'm like, I might be doing a reading for someone and I might feel this like nervousness or this anxiousness, but it's actually from what I'm picking up versus my own. Or sometimes I'll feel like, yeah. So I don't super rely on that one.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I feel like we receive information very similarly, like with the combination of like a visual, but mostly it comes in through like just this knowing, but they kind of work together. And you just had a baby, your first baby. He's so beautiful, little Milo. And I'm really curious. I'd love to hear if you experienced any shift or change in like your own energy and your own if you experienced a new layer of spiritual awakening or psychic activation, or any shifts in any way through the process of having a baby and being a mother.
Well, I mean, it may not be coincidental now that I think about it, but I definitely did have a new layer of spiritual awakening through my pregnancy. Part of me feels like it was my time anyway to step into that, because like now in hindsight, I see it very, very clearly, but I didn't see it as much at the time, because when I first started my business, it was like spirituality was the core of how I started everything, you know, like how I came up with the programs, how I did it. And then somewhere along the line, I got a little bit like logical about what I was doing, you know what I mean? Like I think once I started like having like a lot of success, I was just like, okay, now I need to be smart about maintaining it kind of energy. So then a little bit like my logic didn't take over, but I felt like, and it wasn't just my logic, because I've always worked with intuition, but it was more like, rather than being like completely in surrender to like allowing myself to be fully guided by that spiritual part of myself, like I was a little bit more in the driver's seat on a human conscious level for a little while. And then I could tell I was being pulled back to that. And a lot of that happened through my pregnancy. So the start of my pregnancy, well, the whole pregnancy, I was sick with nausea and vomiting. And the start of the pregnancy was very extreme. And so I like was being pulled to surrender so deeply in that time that like any belief that I had that I needed to feel a specific way, I needed to be doing specific things in order to be in alignment, to have the things, to feel, to whatever, like completely shattered, because I didn't have the choice to feel good in my body, because I felt horrible. Like, I mean, in the first 3 months, it was not uncommon for me to throw up 30 times a day, like every half hour. And especially the first few weeks, like I probably should have been hospitalized, but we were traveling at the time and we were in America, and I just like couldn't imagine possibly going to a hospital in America. Like the medical bills, I just didn't even want to imagine. But anyway, so like that part of it was that. And then at the start of, so I got pregnant in August, so a year ago, I got pregnant from this recording. And then I had my baby in May. And so then at the start of 2020, I started having like all of these pulls back to like bringing more spirituality into the forefront of what I was doing and all these shifts. And so it felt like that's where this huge shift came, where I realized like I was now not only just wanting to help people build businesses as the main thing, like I wanted to be working more in the evolution of our souls, of our experience, and really like getting excited about bringing that spirituality to the very, very forefront. So for example, like doing readings and like specifically coming through with what's really specific business strategy for a person based on their soul, right? Like what would come through for them. So it was kind of like this thing. So that was kind of it. And then in terms of I don't feel like my intuition necessarily got stronger. It's just I play with it more now. Which then obviously makes it feel clearer and everything. But the other thing was like, the birth for me was just a very healing experience. Like, as you know, it was just like, there was a lot of layers of past life trauma that were being healed through this birth for me. And it was very intense, but I remember like moments in my over 50-hour labor that I remember like connecting with my spirit team and being like, oh my God, am I okay? Like, is this actually like okay? And they were just like laughing and jovial. And I'm like, are you joking right now? Like, this is a serious subject. Like, am I dying? I don't know. No, I didn't think I was dying, but it was, you know, like, it was just extreme. And so, but I remember there was just such a, like, it's all gonna make sense. You're doing fine. Like, just chill. And, yeah, it was extremely healing for me, more than anything, I think, in terms of spiritual stuff.
Yeah. And do you feel like
contemplating, like I'm still like feeling into it? It still feels so like,
it kind
of.
of.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot of energetic shifts, at least in the labor. I know that much. Yeah. It was a big one. And so as we wrap up, I would love, I know you just shared a little tiny bit about what, like what you do with your private one-to-one clients and what kind of work you do. But just if anybody's feeling like drawn to work with you and learn more, like how, what kind of different programs are you offering, or do you have sort of coming up, as much as you can as much as you can share, because I know you are really good with the element of surprise and like, woo, I got something coming. And what could people expect if they were feeling like intrigued about working with you one-on-one right now?
So, I mean, I do one-on-one coaching, and that's like, I love one-on-one coaching because like that can be malleable to anything, you know what I mean?
Yes,
Like
yeah,
no matter
totally.
what you're going through, no matter what like is happening, the thing that I really love, like I do work with a lot of entrepreneurs who really have a desire for experiencing growth and in many areas. Like I personally love helping people make money, like feel fulfilled in their purpose and all these things. And I love helping people do that in a way that actually feels really, really good for them, because that's what I believe is possible for all of us, to like live a life where we have money, we have relationships, we have all these things that, and we're receiving that in our life through a way that feels really, really good. And that's what I call like your unique success blueprint, when you're tapped into that, where you're like having your maximum level of success in whatever definition that is for you. You know, like for me, it's purpose and family and connection. And for other people, it might be a completely different combination of things, but that's possible for anyone. So, I mean, I mainly work with entrepreneurs in that sense, which is why I say psychic business coach, but it's like really so much fucking deeper than that. It's like really, really deep soul transformational stuff.
Totally. Yeah. I can attest to that.
Yeah. And I love, you know, like kind of like I use like human design, 5D consciousness, Akashic energy, like all these wonderful things in the work that I do. And then in terms of programs, I do higher level group coaching stuff, which I have like something that's like basically like one-on-one coaching, but in a small group setting. I have some another one, The Circle, which I feel like I'm going to bring back because it's so amazing. And it's like 8 weeks with like a theme every single week that goes into like gift activation, like bringing through your soul into your business and into your work. And then I run other fun programs as well about business, money, spirituality, basically. And I can't guarantee any of them, because I really am like currently leaning into the space of like what feels like coming through me right now, and then that's what comes through. But on my social medias, you'll always be able to tell what's currently relevant.
Yeah, and I can say that whatever is coming through is always like very juicy and sparkly and exciting and like super alive. I can always feel like the life force energy of it coming through you. Yay! Well, I know that you have a call coming up, so I want to make sure that you have lots of time to be ready for that call. So thank you so much for your time today and for coming on and sharing your experience of like the spiritual awakening and the psychic unfolding. And I'm sure it's going to resonate a lot with a lot of people on a whole bunch of levels. So I appreciate you sharing your energy and your medicine and your magic with us today.
Thank you so much. I love you so much, Amy. You're just
I love
the
you
coolest.
Too.
And thank you to everyone listening. Yeah, everyone listening. Thank you as well. I've loved sharing.
Yeah. Thank you everyone so much for listening. And I hope that you all have a beautiful rest of your day or evening wherever you are.
Okay, third eye activation and third eye awakening. What an exciting topic. So the first thing that I want to say about it is that like I really believe that the initial step to activating and awakening our third eye is to accept that this ability exists within us, that it is our like inherent birthright capability, that we have access to it. Even if we don't feel it, it's just gone dormant, and it's okay. We can wake it up whenever we want. It's not a big deal. The power is in the owning of that and the decision to wake it up. We have so fucking much more power than we believe that we do. So much more power. So our third eye, like the physical manifestation of our third eye, is the pineal gland, which I'm sure you've heard. There's a bunch of awesome YouTube videos about it that you can just look up on the amazing search engine of YouTube, which PS is doing some censorship shit right now that is not cool. But at any rate, there are a lot of cool things to be found on YouTube. So the pineal gland, I won't go into it in depth, but it's a gland like deeply embedded in the middle of our brain. And it's a very cool gland that has actual rods and cones in it, similar to our physical eyes. And yet it's encased within our skull, so it never sees the light. So it's literally a third eye. It has a very similar structural shape to the eye, and it secretes hormones. The glands in our bodies are hormone secretors. So, what do I mean by declaring that and claiming that we have this third eye and that it gets to be activated, it gets to be opened? What I mean is the acknowledgement that our bodies are an arrangement of molecules that are in a constant and continuous state of flux. They exchange atoms and electrons with each other, as well as with the substances that we eat and drink, and with the elements of our environment. So like even when we breathe, we are exchanging atoms and electrons with our environment. It's such a very powerful thing. And that changes our body when we do that. So nothing in our body is ever in a static state, not even our bones, not even our teeth. We kind of get this idea that our bodies are just these fixed things, but they aren't. They are in constant state of flux. It's always changing. All of the atoms, the molecules, the cells that make up our bodies are taking directives from us at all times. Our conscious and subconscious thoughts produce emotions, which are expressed and experienced as chemicals and hormones. And these chemicals and hormones tell our cells how to behave and which functions to turn on and off. And what's more, all matter, including our bodies, is like a congealed form of consciousness condensing into a physical expression. Matter is energy, and especially our bodies. Our bodies are conscious energy condensed and congealed into physical matter. So basically it's just like energy with a slower vibrational wave pattern than non-physical energy. So when we think about that, we have to consider that like our bodies, like every element that makes our body is consciousness. It's just consciousness being expressed in 3D and 4D. So it's not, sometimes we believe that things that are expressed physically just are. They just are what they are, and there's no flexibility to it at all whatsoever. But it is flexible because it's energy. It's just the pattern that the energy has taken to arrange itself. And if you understand how powerful your own perception is, then you can change that. You can absolutely change that, especially your own body. This is how miracle healings happen, is that however it is achieved, somebody has enough of a shift in their mental and emotional paradigm of what they believe is possible, that it instantaneously trickles down into down through all the layers of their energy bodies and into their physical body, and causes a change in the way that the energy arranges itself to reflect the new paradigm, which is health. So in this case, the new paradigm that must be taken on is that our third eye belongs to us. We get to access it. It is ours. We're all born with it. It's like we can wake it up whenever we want. It's been lulled to sleep through, a nefarious magic spell that has been cast upon us and continues to be cast upon us and reinforced at all times to keep us asleep and disconnected from our own power. But the amazing news is that that spell only works if we believe it works. And we get to unsubscribe from the belief that it works and just be like, fuck you, spell. You don't work on me anymore. My third eye belongs to me and I get to have it, and I'm opening it up now. And, you're just not in my energy field anymore. So we tell our bodies right down to the atoms what is true through our thoughts and our emotions, and our bodies respond by arranging the atoms, molecules, and cells to reflect those instructions. Oh my gosh, P.S. I'm at my parents' house right now because my mom and dad look after my little 2-year-old Kieran while I do readings and do these kind of things. And I've been working all day. It's a full day of calls that are booked, readings and coaching calls and things like that. And podcast interviews and such. And my dad just brought me a tea and 2 packages of cookies. That's the sweetest thing ever. I love my parents so much. Okay, so anyway, so yes, we give instructions to our bodies about how they are supposed to arrange their energy as they express in the 3rd and 4th dimension in physicality. And the instructions come from our thoughts and beliefs. They come from the stories that we tell about ourselves. I've said it before on other episodes. I've said it a bazillion times on my Facebook Lives in my Facebook group, Soul Space. Come join. And I will say it again a bazillion times more, that the stories that we tell ourselves are not objectively true. They may get constantly reinforced, and so they may feel very, very real, but they're not objectively capital T true. They are something that you can choose in and out of. You can opt into a story, you can opt out of a story. So if you are opted into the story that your third eye doesn't work and you don't see anything through your third eye, and that it's covered in calcification because of, fluoride in our drinking water by all the evil, bad people, then that is going to be true because you are giving the directive. I hope that makes sense. I hope you understand what I'm saying, that we have so much power in our creative decision making. How else do I put it? So something that recently came through to me in this integration month that I inadvertently took off from podcasting was that this whole, I've said this before, but I just understood it on a whole new level. This whole entire experience on Earth in this realm that we would call the physical realm on Earth is truly, truly akin to a virtual reality game. It is a holographic environment, and everything that we experience is like energy patterns. It's energy arranged into patterns. And we are the quantum computers, the organic quantum computers. So we're not artificial intelligence. We are organic intelligence. That's what makes us fucking amazing, incredible beings. Made in the image of God. I believe that's what that means. We are the organic quantum computers that are rendering the energy patterns to produce this consensus reality. And each of us has a unique perspective. And so that makes for a lot of variation in the experienced consensus reality. So when I say consensus, I mean, the tree exists and we are all rendering it because it exists as an energy pattern, and so we all see the tree. Or the city exists because it exists in a prearranged energy pattern, and we all perceive that energy pattern, so we agree that the city is there, and so it is there. But it is a consensus reality because we all have to perceive that energy pattern for most of this to be rendered in the same way for everyone. But my point with us being unique individuals with different perspectives is that there are variations. So I don't know if you've ever had that thought when you were younger that what I perceive as the color red might not actually be the same version of red to me as it is to somebody else, right? That's where variations, that's just an example of a variation of our experience of the consensus reality. But our brains, our minds are all of our senses, like our whole consciousness is the quantum computer that is rendering the environment. So if you're a gamer, which again, I'm not, so I don't know why I keep coming back to gaming analogies, but they really work. If you're a gamer, you understand, especially if you're a game developer, you understand that the environment within the game is not actually real. It's code. You're coding it, you're programming it to take on an appearance of like if you're, thinking about Red Dead Redemption, like what a beautiful game. My son is a gamer. This is how I know this stuff. But what a beautiful game. Like the world with, the Wild West sort of frontier environment. It's beautifully done, beautifully coded. But it's not like those trees are actual trees, right? But they look like trees in the game, but it's just coding, and it produces, and then the computer renders it, like certain, I think it's certain software that renders it, and then it just produces what looks like a tree. It's very similar, but it's even fucking cooler on Earth, where we are the software. We are the computer that renders this coding, this energy coding that produces the physical world that we experience around us. So when you think about it that way, you understand that we have so much power to decide, is our pineal gland dormant or is it awake? Has it been dormant and now we're choosing for it to be awake? If that's what we believe, then yes, that's what will happen, because nothing is objectively true. Nothing. Like, objectivity is a fantasy. It can't even exist. Everybody has a perspective, and you can't remove that perspective. You can't detach from the unique observer perspective. And quantum physicists have already proven this, so it's not even an arguing point. I don't know why I'm talking about it, but I will just remind you that there's nothing that's objectively true. Some things are a little bit more objectively true than others, but any belief that we have is not in any way an objective fact. It is a belief. It is a belief. And we get to opt out of any beliefs that produce results that render experiences that we don't want to be having, that don't feel good. And we get to replace those with new beliefs. And the process of replacing an old belief with a new belief is tricky at first. It's, you know, you really have to spend time and patience coaxing your brain into buying into a new concept. But it's totally doable, and it is, you know, one of the most powerful ways that we enact our magic. So, for example, for a relevant example to this topic, if you believe that your pineal gland, your third eye, is, you know, atrophied and calcified by all the fluoride in our food and our drinking water and our dental care products, etc., and so your third eye is closed and it doesn't work, you're sending directives to your body. And I'm not trying to make you feel wrong or bad or stupid for believing that. We're only just beginning to realize how powerful our beliefs are. But if you have that belief that I can't use my third eye, it doesn't work, it's because of the fluoride, or mine just doesn't work, or whatever, you know, whatever belief that you have, you're sending a directive to all of the energy that comprises your physical body, as well as just your experience in general. But in terms of your physical body, you're sending a directive down through all of your energy bodies and into your physical body that, you know, for example, would cause the molecules of your cells and the molecules of the calcium deposits from the fluoride to bond more securely with each other. And you would be sending instructions down to the molecules that comprise the cells of your pineal gland to become shrunken and weaker and smaller. And because your beliefs are instructions, your body, all the energy that is, you know, is under the jurisdiction of your consciousness will follow those instructions. Whereas if you have a belief, if you change your belief to say, my third eye is opening, it works better and better every day. You would be giving instructions to your cells that comprise your pineal gland to become, you know, larger, healthier, more vibrant, more energy is being sent there. All of the processes of the cells start working better. Your pineal gland starts to grow. If you created the belief that I am more powerful than any fluoride and any calcification, then you would be sending directives down into the molecules that cause the bonds between the calcium deposits and your actual pineal gland cells to weaken, and the calcium deposit will just start to dissolve and fall away because nothing is static. It's all so flexible. It's so malleable. We just are beginning to remember how much power we have and how this all works. So all of this rantiness to say that you are way fucking more powerful than any fluoride put in the water by anybody with any nefarious intentions. And obviously, I clearly believe that fluoride is put in our water and our dental care products and stuff totally for nefarious intentions. It is not to improve our oral health. That's just a smokescreen reason given so that, humans are all like, okay, we just accept it. But it's definitely, in my opinion, there as part of the agenda to keep us disconnected from our power. But the way all of that works is to convince us that we are powerless. It all has to work on the level of like brainwashing because the mind is such a powerful thing. So you're way more powerful than any fluoride, and you're way more powerful than anybody's nefarious intentions to disconnect you from your power, because it's not possible to truly disconnect you from your power. Your power, your magic, your psychic abilities, your spirituality, your remembrance of yourself as a soul, your ability to remember your past lives, all of that stuff. It all belongs to you. It is your birthright, and nobody can take you away or take it away from you. But they sure as fuck can convince you that you don't have access to it. And then if they've convinced you don't have access to it, then it's as good as not having access to it, because what you'll experience is not having access to it. So believe that your pineal gland is yours, your third eye is yours. It is a technology, an organic technology that is inherent to our, body systems, and that we get to use it as another way of relating to energy and the universe and all that. You get to use your third eye. It gets to work for you. Okay, so now that I've said all that, hold on, let me gather my thoughts. Okay, the next thing that I want to say that to me are like absolutely key to activating your third eye is to also acknowledge that as with everything, we're going to experience things like the progress is going to feel kind of slow at first. Like if you're deliberately trying to cultivate a gift or a skill or whatever, it's going to feel a little bit like slow progress, and that we are so trained to seek out the immediate reward, like the immediate reward pathway in our brains have been strongly built up. So that we're always wanting the instant gratification, and that's just what our brain is searching for. And so we often abandon things really quickly without even giving them a chance to for the roots to grow, It's like planting a seed and then, right away or in the first week being like, nothing's growing, and digging it up and throwing it away because you're like, fuck this seed, nothing's growing. It hasn't even germinated yet, let alone put out any roots. And I find that it's really like that with our sort of psychic development, and certainly with our third eye opening. I also want to demystify it and say that, so I receive energy in a very subtle way. And it wasn't until I was willing to validate it that I, really started experiencing it with greater potency, maybe is the right word, in a more overt and powerful way. But even still, even though I do readings, I literally just did readings all day yesterday and today, and I still receive information through my third eye in a very subtle way. And like in the conversation with Viola, it mostly comes through what I would previously have called my imagination. It's like an imagination an imagination realm. But the way that it feels different for me, like, so that I can decipher between whether it's my imagination or whether it is something that I am receiving and picking up on, is that when it's my imagination, I can feel myself conjuring it up. I can feel the effort it takes to put the image together. Whereas if it's something that I'm actually receiving during a reading or at any other time, it feels like it's dropping into my mind's eye fully formed. And I will straight up tell you that with the exception of one occasion, I have never seen anything in the physical world outside of me with my third eye. So I've never seen a shadow figure or a ghost. I've seen a ghost. That's the only time that I saw it. And it wasn't even like a crazy sighting where I was like, what the fuck? Like but it was definitely a ghost. But anyway, like even that was very subtle. I don't see dead people walking around. I don't see like spirit cats or spirit dogs. Everything comes in through my mind's eye. None of it is outside of my body. And for a long time, I thought that meant I wasn't psychic, and that my third eye didn't work, but it totally works. It totally works. So I just want to include that to kind of demystify it a little bit. One of my favorite movies to depict, like experiencing something psychically is the movie The Gift, starring Cate Blanchett, and Keanu Reeves is in it, and Katie Holmes, and I don't know, somebody else, but I can't remember who it is. But anyway, if you've never seen that movie, definitely watch it. And if you've seen that movie, the scene where she like goes outside and she sees her grandmother suddenly at the clothing line, like I think she's dreaming or she's just outside and her grandmother's there and says like, better get the clothes in, dear. A storm's coming. And she looks up and all of a sudden clouds are rolling in over the sky. And then she looks over and her grandmother's gone and everything's gone back to normal. Or the scene where she feels like a drop hit her hand and she looks up into the tree, and above her she sees like the vision of the dead body. It's a murder mystery. It's really good. Those, to me, I believe that people can see those outside of themselves. Like that's the way it's depicted in a movie. And it's because we can't, like when you're trying to convey that stuff through a movie, you have to almost convey it like it's happening outside of a person. So I believe that some psychics who have strong third eye abilities can see those things like outside of themselves, like that, projected outside of themselves. And some of us see it in our minds, but either way, it's a vision. It's still a vision. It's not a physical manifestation outside of our bodies, but it is an energetic, it's energy information that we are picking up, and we either perceive it to be outside of us or inside of our minds, but neither way is more legitimate, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it would be the same if you saw your spirit guide in your mind's eye versus seeing your spirit guide outside of your body. Like neither is more legitimate. It's just the way that your consciousness is interpreting that information. And back to the part about everything feeling like progress, feeling really slow at first. I also want to say, just reiterate that again, like this information is so subtle and we're so used to everything being like shoved right in our faces. When we sort of quiet down, whether you want to call it meditating or not, when we quiet down and create some space and some silence, we become aware of all these other things in our environment, these other noises, these other visuals. Like you start to maybe notice an insect, or you notice like dewdrops on a plant, or do you know what I mean? Like when we're busy and our brains are just like running amok in beta brainwave frequencies, then we're not really that perceptive, because we're filtering, in order to run our brain processes like that, we're filtering out so much information. But at any given time, there's so much more energetic and physical information around us than we generally are aware of. And so a big part of cultivating our third eye abilities is creating the space and the time for it to reveal itself, and also not demanding our gifts to reveal themselves to us, but also like giving them space so that they can unfold, like with our cooperation. It's kind of like the difference between somebody telling you what to do and demanding that you do it right now versus telling you. It's like when you're a little kid and your parents are like, okay, we're leaving now to go to church. And you're like, no, I'm playing, bah, run. You throw a temper fit. But if they say to you, okay, we're going to church later, this is the plan, and I'd really like you to come, or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But basically just create space for you to get on board. That's what you're doing. And you're creating space for your gifts to reveal themselves, and you're also creating space for your own mind's eye to or your own conscious mind, to like get on board with this new decision, where like your conscious mind it'll initially probably kick up a fuss and be like, I can't see anything through my third eye. This isn't working. Like every time I try to meditate, it's not working and I'm not seeing anything and whatever. And you just have to like let it have its little temper fit, but then continue to create space for it to finally just like chill out and get on board with this new plan and get behind this plan so that it's not thwarting it anymore. And I really think that there's like no better way to do that than to just like allow it to happen rather than try and force it to happen. So I hope these tidbits are interesting to you and helpful. I'm creating, by the time you hear this, I will have created a free meditation for activating your third eye, and I'm going to put it in my Facebook group, Soul Space. So if you want access to that meditation, come join my Facebook group. That's where it will be, and it's free. And yes, it's to grow my Facebook group, but also it's because that's a really convenient like place to put it so that people can find it and access it. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I guess the only other things that I want to say on the topic too are just that, what was it? Fuck. Okay, I remember. It's just also to remind you that not everybody's like strongest way of interpreting non-physical energy from spirit is clairvoyantly through the third eye, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. I am a very visual person. I receive a lot of information. Basically, I receive it claircognizantly. So like I just receive like things through my crown, just a knowing and an understanding. And then it sort of like filters through my third eye and produces a vision that, gives it more context and helps me to more easily translate it to myself, to understand it myself, and then to be able to translate it for people for whom the message might be. And yet I don't get a lot of clairaudient information, a little bit, but not a ton. And I don't get a lot of like physical in my body clairsentient information, a little bit, but not a ton. But it doesn't matter. Like we're all wired differently, and that's a beautiful thing. So don't be discouraged if you just feel like your third eye never really opens up. That like, just remember that you are receiving information, and the higher you calibrate your vibration, so the better you feel in general. Like really, Abraham Hicks knows what she/they are talking about, because it's all about alignment. It's all about vibrating as high as you possibly can, with the understanding that you won't be vibrating high all the time, but that when you vibrate, low and like something comes up that's painful and sticky or crunchy or just like dense and hard, that's okay too. Don't get mad at yourself. It's part of being human, but you can always recalibrate yourself to the highest vibration that's available to you. And the higher you vibrate, the more you practice that feeling of feeling good, whether it has to do with psychic stuff or not, it doesn't matter. It's just feeling good in general, feeling good being alive, enjoying the just seeing the beauty of life, no matter what your circumstances are. There is beauty available everywhere for all of us. It's up to us to notice it. So the more you practice that, the more it becomes your default vibrational setting, and the higher you vibrate, the more access you have to higher vibrational non-physical information. Physical information has to, through our physical senses, has to do with being alive on Earth and being in a 3D and 4D environment. That is a specific bandwidth of vibration. And, our bodies are created of the earth. Our bodies are like our earth suit as opposed to our space suit. It's our earth suit. It's the adapted vehicle that allows our souls to exist in this environment, if that makes sense. And so our bodies take in information through physical senses. But we are multidimensional beings. Our souls are multidimensional. So we have access to higher and lower dimensions of consciousness. And I'm not talking about connecting with the lower dimensions. That's a different story. You're not going to find information about that here. But the higher dimensions of consciousness are available to us. And we receive them through our energetic and light bodies, our subtle layers of energy that are around our physical bodies. And then we each interpret them uniquely according to the hard wiring of our physical bodies. So non-physical information is non-physical, but as it is interpreted by our human brains, it registers often as being in connection with one of our physical senses. So I was having this conversation yesterday with one of my coaching clients who is so psychic AF, it's wild. And she's like, holy shit. And she was asking about smelling scents from spirit. And I just pondered it for a while, and I was like, it's not that we're smelling physical smells. This is my take on it. It's not that we're smelling physical smells. It's that we are receiving energy from spirit, and it's registering in our brains as information that pertains to the olfactory part of our brain that translates information as a smell. But it's not coming through our physical nose. It's not physical scent particles. And even if it is physical scent particles, when it's from spirit, it's like spirit is manipulating the energy waves around us to create physical scent particles so that we pick up on it and we understand what it's supposed to mean. Ideally, that happens some of the time. Some of the time they don't get it clear enough for us to understand. But it's the same with visuals. It's not that somebody seeing somebody whose third eye is really active just has more access to information than somebody whose third eye isn't super active. It's just that for one person, non-physical information translates through their brain and their physical nervous system in a way that resembles visuals, because that's the way that their brain is hardwired. And for another person, it would translate more as sounds, as audio, because that's the way their physical brain is hardwired. So it's the difference between somebody who, is really skilled at math versus somebody who's really skilled at visual art versus somebody who's really skilled at sports versus somebody who's very skilled at cooking. We all have different aptitudes, and we all have different areas that are more latent And it's not that we can't cultivate those gifts. It's just that in some areas it's just not our main thing. And so, we can kill ourselves, so to speak, trying to force ourselves to cultivate something because we've decided that this is the way it's, we can call ourselves psychic, or this is the way we can call ourselves talented or whatever. But meanwhile, we might not be noticing that there's probably a way that psychic information is coming through that's like almost so easy that it's so natural for us that it's easy to not notice. So that's the last little bit, but we all are multidimensional beings. The more we expand our belief that there is more out there than just the physical world, that we understand that even, air quotes, just the physical world is multidimensional. It exists within multiple dimensions of vibration, and each dimension of vibration is just a bandwidth of a vibrational frequency, and that we can tune ourselves to different vibrational frequencies. We just open up the floodgates to access so much more information. But as long as we are human, it's going to at least partially filter through our psyches and our brains and our nervous systems and register as pertaining to one of the 5 physical senses. But it's still non-physical energy. Okay, I hope that was helpful for all of you. I find all of this super interesting. So like I said, there is a meditation, a third eye activation meditation available in my Facebook group. If you are not a Facebook person and you hate Facebook and you really do not want to have anything to do with that, but you still want the meditation, then let me know and I will, figure out a way to send you the link. But if you are a Facebook person, come to my group and get access to it. I'm very excited about it and very proud of it. And the last thing I will say is that don't take the meditation literally. Don't get fixated on producing every single visual that I'm describing. Just, relax. I've put it to a gamma wave track. So that really entrains your brain waves into being like super high vibe, super focused. Gamma waves are my personal favorite. And just let the gamma waves take you away. Just let the sound of my voice take you away and just let it all unfold. And if it doesn't produce miraculous results the first time, just keep trying it because it's available to you, I promise. Okay, that's it. Lots of love, everyone. Oh my gosh, how dare I? Also, there's 6 days left in August, and I have a promotion on my Akashic readings right now. There's a link in my Instagram bio. Just go check that out. But as long as you book in the month of August, my whole August calendar is full. But even if you book into September, but you've booked in August and you pay in August, then you can get the promo. And I'm rolling out a very, very cool program with multiple tiered access about your soul purpose, activation, clarifying and aligning with your soul purpose. Again, it has multiple tiers, including a free tier. So that information is also on my Instagram and my Facebook group and my Facebook page. So come check it out. I love you all. Thank you for returning to me after my long, unexpected hiatus. I hope you've all had beautiful summer/winter, depending on where you live. And you're amazing, powerful, magical beings. Okay, see you next week. Thank you so much for being here with me on this episode. I appreciate you more than my words could ever say. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share, and I will catch you on the next episode.